There was someone in my school who shouldn't have been there, and the worst part is, in every story, by the time anyone realized something was wrong, it was already way too late. The first one happened when I was a sophomore. My high school had this weird rule where if you were late to first period, you had to get a pass from the attendance office before a teacher would let you into class. One morning, my mom's car wouldn't start, so by the time I got to school, the first bell had already rung. The halls were mostly empty by then, which already made the school feel different. During lunch or between classes, it was loud and chaotic, but when everyone was already in class, every little sound echoed. I got my late pass from the office and started heading toward my history class in the north wing. To get there, I had to pass one of the old stairwells near the auditorium. As I walked by, I heard footsteps behind me, not running, just steady, slow enough to make me notice them. I turned around, expecting to see a teacher or security, but there was just this guy coming out of the stairwell. He looked like a student at first glance. Hoodie, backpack, hands in his pockets. Totally normal. But something about him felt off immediately. He wasn't going anywhere specific. He was just walking in the same direction as me, like he'd decided to follow me the second I passed. I sped up a little. So did he. I told myself I was being paranoid. It was school. There were cameras, teachers everywhere. But when I turned down the hallway toward my classroom, I looked back again and he was still there. Closer now. That was the point where I stopped pretending it was nothing. I walked straight into my history class without knocking and handed my teacher the pass. He looked annoyed at first, but I must have looked freaked out because he asked if I was okay. I glanced back out the little window in the classroom door. The guy had stopped in the hallway. He wasn't walking anymore. He was just standing there, looking at the door. My teacher stepped out into the hall, and the second he did, the guy turned and walked away fast. Not running, just fast enough that he clearly didn't want to talk. My teacher asked if I knew him. I said no. Later that day, around 7th period, there was an announcement asking teachers not to let any students out of class unless it was an emergency. Nothing else was explained. At the end of the day, my friend told me she heard from one of the office aides that a former student had somehow gotten into the building that morning. Supposedly, he'd been suspended permanently the year before, and no one knew why he came back. I didn't think much of it until 2 days later, when I saw the exact same hoodie and backpack sitting in a parked car across from the student lot after school. The second story happened to my cousin, and honestly, it's the one that bothers me the most. She was in theater, which meant she stayed late at school a lot for rehearsals. One night they were getting ready for the fall play, and rehearsal ran later than usual. By the time everyone started packing up, it was already dark outside. The theater kids used this side hallway behind the stage to get to the costume room, prop storage, and a back exit near the faculty lot. Apparently, the hallway always felt creepy at night because only one of the overhead lights worked, so the whole thing looked yellow and dim. My cousin said she was helping put away costume pieces when she realized she'd left her phone charging backstage. Everyone else was either outside already or in the front lobby, so she told her friend she'd be right back and cut through the side hallway alone. As she was walking, she heard someone whisper her name. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, like somebody behind a door trying not to be heard. She stopped and looked around, thinking maybe one of her friends was messing with her. But the hallway was empty. The costume room was locked. The prop room was dark. Nothing. Then she heard it again. Her name. This time from farther down the hall, near the backstage stairs. She said the part that freaked her out wasn't the voice itself. It was that whoever said it sounded completely calm. No laughter. No joking. Just like they were trying to get her to come closer. Instead, she backed up and pulled out her phone to use the screen as light. That's when she realized her phone wasn't in her pocket, still on the charger. So now she had no phone, barely any light, and someone in that hallway knew her name. She turned and started walking faster toward the stage entrance, but before she got there, she heard one of those metal crash bars on an exit door slam shut behind her. Hard. She broke into a run. When she got backstage, her friend was there waiting with her phone in hand, asking why she looked like she'd seen a ghost. My cousin told her everything, and both of them went straight to the drama teacher. The teacher checked the side hallway with one of the custodians, but there was nobody there. What they did find, though, was weird. The backstage door at the far end, the one that should have been alarmed after a certain hour, had been propped open with a roll of gaffer tape. Not by accident either. It had been wedged carefully so the latch wouldn't catch. A week later, the school quietly changed the after-hours access rules for the auditorium and started making staff walk students to the parking lot after rehearsal. No one ever told them exactly why. The third story is mine again, and it happened senior year. We had this college prep room in the library that students could use before school, mostly seniors. It had a couple computers, scholarship binders nobody ever touched, and one printer that jammed every 10 minutes. I used to go in there early because it was one of the few places in the school that was actually quiet. One morning, I got there around 6:50. The library itself was still locked, but the prep room had its own side entrance from the hallway, and for some reason, it was already open. I figured a guidance counselor had unlocked it early. Inside, the lights were off, but I could see enough from the hallway light spilling in. There was someone sitting at one of the computers. I assumed it was another student until I stepped in and said, "You mind if I turn the lights on?" No answer. That already felt weird, but I still thought maybe they had headphones in. I hit the switch and the fluorescent lights flicked on. The chair was empty. I'm dead serious. Empty. And before anybody says maybe I imagined someone was there, no. I saw the shape of a person sitting there, clear as day, shoulders, head, everything. I actually laughed for a second because I thought I'd just scared myself over nothing. But then I noticed the computer screen on that desk was awake. Not just on, awake. There was a document open, no name at the top, no school header, just one line typed in the middle of a blank page. "You're early today." I froze. I wish I could say I handled it well, but I didn't. I backed out of that room so fast I nearly hit the wall in the hallway. I stood there staring through the little glass window in the door, waiting for someone to move inside. Nothing did. A librarian came around the corner maybe 20 seconds later and asked what was wrong. I told her there was someone in there. She opened the door and checked the whole room. No one. Then she looked at the computer. The document was still open. She asked if I'd typed it as a joke. I told her absolutely not. She called the assistant principal, who came down, unplugged the computer, and asked me a bunch of questions like whether I'd told anyone I'd be there that early. The creepy part is, I actually had. The day before, I'd mentioned to my guidance counselor that I wanted to come in early to print something before class. I'd said it right there in the counseling office while other students were waiting, so technically, anybody nearby could have heard me. They checked the room later and found out one of the side windows didn't latch all the way. It opened just enough from the outside for someone to mess with it. Not enough to fully climb through, but enough to reach in if they were determined. To this day, I don't know if someone had been in that room minutes before I walked in, or if they were still close enough to watch me from somewhere nearby after I ran out. That's the thing about school stories like these. They're scary because they don't need to be supernatural. Most of the time, what really gets under your skin is knowing it was probably a real person standing way closer than you ever realized. And if you've ever had something happen at school that still doesn't make sense, that's exactly the kind of story that sticks with you, because school is the one place you're supposed to feel surrounded by people, not watched by the wrong one. If you've got a school story that still creeps you out, leave it in the comments, and send this video to that one friend who definitely would have followed the whisper down the hallway.